Hello and welcome, I'm your Code Monkey, and here let's learn how to use a very exciting new Unity tool called user-generated content. Basically, this lets you add modding or any kind of user content onto your game. Nowadays, games are more and more driven by user content. People love making things and watching other people play what they create, and this tool makes adding that feature to your game super easy. It's up to you as a developer to decide what content users can build for your game. It can be new levels, new weapons, perhaps new NPCs or quests. It can literally be anything you want. User-generated content is just data, and you as a developer can decide what that data represents. Then for your players, as creators they can create mods and upload them, and as just players they can browse all the mods that the creators have made and install the ones they want. The API is really easy to use. If you've used any of the other Unity Gaming Services APIs, you will find this very familiar. The dashboard makes it really easy for you as a developer to manage all of the user-generated content. There's a Creator Center web page where creators can manage all of their own mods. It also has moderation tools, so you can make some users into moderators to keep track of what content your users are generating. For creating mods, you can either create some in-game tools yourself and have the players build and upload mods from directly inside the game. Alternatively, they can upload them through the Creator Center webpage. And coming soon is a really exciting UGC Unity Bridge, which lets players use Unity itself in order to create and upload mods directly from Unity. Oh, and by the way, all of this is also engine agnostic, so if you're using Unreal or Godot or a custom engine, you can still use this tool. In this first video, I will teach you how to use the API from scratch, just uploading and downloading some basic data and seeing all of the other things the API can do. I will also show you the dashboard, Creator Center, and moderator tools. And then in a future video, I will showcase a fully complete demo that I'm working on using my Kitchen Chaos game, where players can mod it by adding custom recipes and custom objects. So watch this video to learn the basics and stay tuned for that one to see a practical use case. Also, finally, in the end of this video, I'll also address how this tool compares with Steam Workshop, how this tool is different, and what it can do better. This video is sponsored by Unity, and this tool, the user-generated content, this is now in open beta. Check the link in the description to sign up and get started. Also, YouTube videos cannot be updated, so go check the pinned comment where I will be updating it with any news, like for example when UGC Bridge is out or when this tool is out of beta. Alright, so let's begin by looking at the absolute basics, just learning how to create some content, upload it, and then download it as a player. First thing we need to do is link our Unity project. So that's the same thing as using any other UGS tools. So inside Unity, on the top left corner, up here, make sure you are signed in. If you see a button saying sign in, then click on it and sign in. If you have issues, then close Unity, open Unity Hub, make sure you are signed in there before opening the project. So sign in, then go into Edit, Project Settings. Over here, go into the Services tab. And then we can either create a brand new Unity project ID or we can use an existing one. Now in my case, I have already created the project, so I'm going to be using this one and just link the project ID. And yep, there it is, project was linked successfully. Okay, great. Now we can go into the Unity dashboard and sign in. Now here on the left side, let's go under Live Ops. Now here up top, make sure you select the same project. Then on the left side, let's go into Live Ops. Then over here, let's scroll down to find user-generated content. And now let's go ahead and enable UGC. Alright, that's done, so now let's follow this setup guide. First thing we need is to install the UGC package. So for this one, let's open up the package manager. And right now, at the time of this recording, since this tool is in open beta, the package is actually marked as preview, pre-release. So if you don't see it, you need to enable preview packages. So on the top right corner, go into the three dots and go into project settings. And over here, make sure you enable pre-release packages. And now you should be able to see the user-generated content package. Alternatively, you can just install it through the name, so click on the plus icon, add package by name, and use this name, com.unity.services.ugc. Okay, so go ahead and install this package. Now, here I am on a completely empty scene. Let's create a nice script to test it. So I'm going to create a brand new C# script, call this test Unity UGC. Let's make a game object with the same name. Keep things nice and clean. Let's reset the transform, attach the script, and open it. Okay, so now here, if you've already used any of the other Unity Gaming Services tools, then this API will look extremely familiar, which is awesome. Once you know how one of their tools works, you will easily learn how to use all the others. So if you've already seen my video on using Lobby or Relay or Matchmaker or Game Server Hosting, or if you've seen my free multiplayer course, then the code we're going to write here is going to look extremely familiar. Personally, I really love how Unity made all these tools follow the same pattern. It makes them all super easy to use. If you know one, you know them all. So just like in all of those other tools, we begin by initializing the services and authenticating the user. So let's begin by making a simple function, private void. Let's call it init and sign in. Then over here, we want to initialize Unity services. So let's go inside Unity services, which exists inside the namespace unity.services.core. and let's call the function initialize async. Now this is an async call, which is awaitable, so let's await this. And in order to be able to use await, we need to mark this function as async. Now if you don't know about async await, then it's pretty simple. Basically, this lets you run your code asynchronously, meaning that when the code comes here and runs this function, it is basically going to contact the Unity servers to initialize these services, and that will not freeze the game. So the execution will contact the servers and then continue running the rest of it. Everything will keep running until it receives a response from the server, and then it continues running this function. You don't need to know the specifics about await and async, you just need to know that on these async function calls, you should add the await keyword, and if you add that, then you must mark the function as async. Okay, so with this we are initializing these services. Afterwards we need to log in. So let's authenticate. Let's use the authentication service inside unity.services.authentication. And let's access the instance and call the function signin. We've got all kinds of sign-in functions. And normally for most UGS tools, I just sign in anonymously. It is super quick, super simple, and for regular players that works great. They can easily download any user-generated content. But in order for your creators to be able to manage their own mods on the web portal, they need to have a persistent auth method so they can log in the web portal using the same auth they use in-game. If not, if they are only using anonymous sign-in, then they can really only manage their created mods through the game. Depending on the game, that might or might not be a problem, but if you want to make your user account a bit more robust, then you should probably be using one of these persistent auth methods. I'm going to use that in a little bit, but for now, just for a quick test, let's do it just with an anonymous account. Okay, so we sign in. Again, let's await this call, and afterwards we can access the authentication service, the instance, and get the player ID. So let's just do a debug.log, say signed in, and print the player ID. Okay, great. Now let's just call this function just for testing. Let's make a private void awake, and on awake call this. Okay, let's do a quick test to see if we are signing in. And if there's the login, we are indeed signed in. Okay, great. So now that we are signed in, we want to create some content. And for content, like I said, this can be whatever you want. It can be a level, it can be a weapon, it can be a quest or an entire game mode. Content is really just data, and that data can be anything. It's up to you as a developer to decide that. So here for a simple test, let's just use the most basic data, just some text. Here in my project files, I've got a super simple text file. It literally is just a .text file. And inside we can see it contains just some basic text. Okay, so let's use this as our content. Let's make a function to do that. So private void, let's call it create content. Then here, first thing we want is to be able to read that file. And the way that is shown in the documentation is to use file, which is inside using system.io. So we go into file and then we call open. This one takes a path. So I'm going to find the path to that file. So that's using application.datapath. And then in my case, I put it inside a folder. The folder is called test UGC. And then I called it my mod.txt. Okay, so that's the file, and for this one, let's open it as open. Let's give it file access to read, and file share also for reading. Okay, so this will open the file, and this will return of type file stream for the content file stream. And also one extremely important thing, when working with file streams, you need to make sure to dispose of them so you don't end up with a memory leak. So you can either dispose them manually, so you can do whatever you want and then call dispose, so that's one way, or you can just add the using keyword. And just like this, as soon as this function ends and this variable is disposed of, it will automatically dispose of memory. But this is very important. Make sure you don't forget the using keyword, otherwise you're going to end up with memory leaks. Okay, so with this we have our file stream. And now for creating and uploading some content, we access the UGC service. So this one inside unity.services.ugc, we access the static instance, and we call the function create contents async. This one takes some parameters of this type, so let's create of type create content args. We need to give it a name, so let's give it test content. Then let's give it a description, so test description. And finally the stream, so this is the file stream that contains the content, so let's pass in the content file stream. And once again, this is an async call, so let's await. And in order to await, let's mark this function as async. Okay, so this is going to create and upload our content. Then let's just do a debug.log, just make sure that it worked. So created content. And then let's print out the content, which is going to be returned from here. So this returns of type content, call it content. And let's print out the content.id. And finally, just like with all the other Unity gaming services tools, let's make sure to wrap this in a try catch to catch any exceptions. So let's just do a try, run our code. Then we've got a catch. Let's catch of type UGC exception. And if something bad happens, let's just do a debug.log on the error. And let's put this one over here. Okay, great. So this is really all it takes to create a mod. We create a file stream to read our data, and then we simply upload it to UGC. Now for testing, let's just call this function from somewhere. So for testing, let's do a simple private void update, and over here, just test for a simple input. So let's go get key down, let's say the T key for testing, and let's call create content. Okay, so with this, let's test. So here we are, looking at the console, we can see that we've signed in. Okay, great. Now if I press the testing key, and you have a look at that, it did work, it created content and generated this new ID. Now back in the UGC dashboard, we can go over here into the content tab, and yep, here we do see our test content. So yep, everything worked, alright, awesome. Now over here we can view the content, so I can click on it to go inside. Now here one note, if you click on the content and you see this error, then go into the service settings. Then on the left side, go into the web portal setup, and over here for site visibility, let's swap this and make it enabled, and save, and that's it, saved. So now back to the content, and you should be able to see this. Here we can view the content, we can inspect to see the player ID of the player who created it, we can read the name, description, and see all kinds of stats. Also, for some reason, it doesn't show here the ID for this content. It shows the environment where it was created and the version ID, but it does not show the content ID. Although if you want to find that, you can actually look in the URL. So in the URL at the very end, you will find, yep, this is the content ID. Then here we even have a download button, so we can download the file. And note how this does not have a .text extension. Like I said, content can be whatever you want. What we are downloading here is really just some bytes. So this could be an entire level, or a game mode, or a brand new weapon. Or in our case, we know we just uploaded some basic text. So if I just open this file with Notepad, yep, there's our mod text. Alright, awesome. Then optionally, when creating content, we can include some more data. So when we are creating the create content args, up here at the end, we can add the curly braces. And now inside, we've got all kinds of things we can modify. For example, we can set as public and set this to go public right away. Then we can also include a thumbnail. This one takes a stream type. So the way you add the thumbnail is pretty simple. We just use exactly the same thing. So we do another file stream. Let's call this one the thumbnail file stream. In my case, here in the project files on the same folder, I've got the mod and I've got a simple gamepad icon. So I'm just going to use this. So gamepad.png. Once again, open it for reading. Okay, so that's the thumbnail file stream, and let's pass in as the thumbnail. Then you can also include a list of tags. Now, importantly, this list is a list of string. However, it is not a list of tags for the tag name. If we go back to the dashboard on the left side, we go down into service settings. Over here, we've got labels. These are the tags. I'm going to cover that in more detail in a little bit, but just on the names that you see here, these are not the names that you use in that parameter. Instead, each of these tags has an actual unique ID, and that's the one that you should use. But again, I'm going to cover that in a little bit. Then you can also add some custom ID for your content. So again, this is up to you. This is a basic string. It's up to you to define what it means, and same thing for some metadata. But for now, let's just upload it just like this. Let's call it super test content, my new test description, and let's upload it, set public to true, and give it the thumbnail. Okay, so let's run this and see. Here we are, signed in, press on T. And if there you go, it created content, it uploaded and generated a brand new ID. And back here on the dashboard, if we go into content, and if there it is, we see our brand new super test content. We can see by default it is public, and it does have a nice thumbnail. So with this, you can see how easy it is to create and upload some user-generated content. Literally just takes one line of code and it's done. Now let's see the other side, how to download some user-generated content. For that, first we actually need to find it. So let's make a function for that, a private void, call it find contents. And over here we can go inside the UGC service, and we can call the function get contents async. It's this one with plural, not this one without the s, so it's this one in plural. And basically this will return a bunch of contents. It takes an optional parameter of this type, get contents args, so we can construct it to inspect it. Here we see how we can add some filters for searching. We can include the total number of results, we can limit how many results we get, we can give it an offset, search for something specific, or only get certain tags. So we can do all kinds of searching on this one function, or alternatively, we can actually remove this optional component, and this will simply return all the results. Now also note the return value on this function. It returns of type page results. So let's grab this. So page results is going to be of type content. And again, this was an awaitable call. So let's mark this as async. Okay. Now note, just by the type here, this is page results, meaning this does not necessarily contain all the results. Now, if you have thousands of mods, you really don't want to get them all at once. So that is why the result is paginated. So if you wanted to get them all and you had thousands, you would have to make multiple calls to this and pass in a different offset. But in our case, we just have one, so this is fine. Let's just cycle through all of these results. So just do a simple for each, content, inside content, go inside the page results and grab the results, which is a list of content. So we do this and let's just do a simple debug.log. Let's just print out the content.id. Then let's also print out the content.name. And let's also print out the content.description. And as always, let's wrap this inside a nice try catch. Catch of type UGC exception. Okay, just like this. Okay, so let's see if this finds our content. So up here on our testing key, let's not create, let's just find contents. Okay, let's test. So here we are in press. And now this actually gives an error that the project is hidden. To solve that, let's go back to the dashboard. Let's go into the web portal setup. And over here under site visibility, let's swap it from hidden and make it enabled. So back in here, let's press the testing key. And if there you go, it did find our content. So here it is with the name, description, and the content ID. Okay, so that's great, we found it. However, this is just finding the content and returning the ID. It does not download it just yet. For that, let's make another function. So let's go here, a private void. Let's call it download content. And now in here we use UGC service, the instance, and let's call download content data async. However, over here we can see this requires a content object. Now, technically we have a content object up here when finding contents, so we could download it directly after finding it. But if we just want to download some content, actually what we need in order to generate some content is just get the content ID. So here in the console, I still have the content ID that we searched for. So for example, let's grab the last one over here. So here's the ID. Let's just copy this. And over here, let's just find a string for the content ID and paste in the string. Okay, so with this ID, we can take this string content ID and convert it into an actual content. For that, let's just go into the UGC service, the instance, and let's call get content. So not contents, not the plural one. So let's go into this one. This one takes get content tars, so let's create one. And over here, we can input the content ID, so let's pass in that one. This one is, once again, it's awaitable, and it's going to return of type content. So let's put content equals, and let's await this. And as always, if we await, let's async. Okay, so with that, we have the content, and over here, we can use that. So let's hit the content. Then for download content, let's put it on true. We want to download it. And the thumbnail, in this case, we don't need it. We just want to download the content, so let's put it on false. And just like it says here, the downloaded data won't be put inside the content parameter, so this call returns nothing. So let's just put a simple await. Okay, so this is actually going to download the data. And now we can access that data by going inside content, and let's access the downloaded content. This one, as you can see, is a byte array. Now in our simple test, all we're doing is just uploading some text. So let's just convert these bytes back into text. And how we can do that is we have our byte array. We can go inside system.text.encoding. Let's use UTF-8, and let's call getString. And this one basically converts an array of bytes into a string. So let's convert this array of bytes into our string. So string for our mod text, and then let's just do a simple .log, so our mod text, and then we have the mod text. Now, as always, when working with UGC, let's make sure that everything is nice and safe. So let's put this inside a try catch. So everything inside a try, and let's catch for a UGC service exception, and just do a debug.log. Okay, so that's it. So we've got the content ID string. We use that. We call get content async in order to convert it into a content. And then we call download content data async in order to actually download the bytes, and then we do whatever we want with those bytes. In this case, over here, we are converting into a string and doing a log. All right, so let's go up here and simply run this function instead. So let's comment out this one and run this one, and let's test. Okay, so here we are, and press the button. And yep, there you go. It takes a little bit for the download, but yep, here is the mod text. This is my mod contents, which is exactly what we uploaded. All right, awesome. Okay, so with that, here we can now download any content. Now, one concept you might be familiar with in terms of modding tools is subscribing to something. That's actually an optional step. It's not mandatory. As you can see, you can download something without being subscribed. But if the player subscribes, then it's easier to keep track of what content the player wants to keep downloaded and updated. Now, subscribing is very easy. Let's just make a private void subscribe content. And now here we just go inside the UGC service. And let's call create subscription async. This one, as you can see, it takes a content ID. So let's use the same one that we had. So let's use this one. And that's really it. This one will subscribe to that content. So let's async await this. As always, put the try catch. Okay, so this is going to create a subscription. Then we can make another function to cycle through everything that the player is subscribed to. So let's make a private void download subscribed content. And once again, let's go inside the UGC service. And now first we need to get the subscriptions. So get subscriptions async. This one takes some optional parameters, but so far we want all of them. So let's just get all of them. Let's await. And we can see that this is actually going to return, once again, page results of type subscription. So let's grab that. Page results of type subscription. All right, so we have this. Then let's just do a for each of type subscription in the page results.results. So we cycle through all of them and we have all of our subscriptions. And inside the subscription, we actually have access to the content. And inside the content, we have access to the ID. So over here, we can do literally the same thing we did up here for downloading some content. So let's just copy the exact same code. So we go and for the content, we get it with this ID. We grab the content, download it, and do whatever we want with it. So once again, let's just put this inside a try catch. And now for testing, let's run once just to subscribe and then once just to download. So let's go up here. And instead of downloading directly, let's just subscribe to the content. Okay, let's test. So here we are and press a button. And yep, it's subscribed. We forgot to add a debug.log, but yep, it did subscribe. So now let's run the other function. So comment this one and let's run download the subscribed content. So here we are and press a button. And if there you go, it did find all of these subscriptions, which was just one mod, and it did download the mod contents. All right, great. Next, like I mentioned a while ago, you can include tags in the content, but like I said, that list of string was not the tag name, it's the tag ID. And to get the tag list, it's actually super simple. So let's do a private void get tag list. And we go inside the UGC service, the instance, and let's just call get tags async. This is going to return a list of tags. So a list of tag for the tag list, and let's await this. So this returns a list of tag. Let's just do a for each, and let's just do a debug.log on the tag. Let's print out the tag name and then the tag ID. Okay, just like this. And now here in the dashboard on the left side, if we go under service settings, over here we've got the labels. These are the actual tags. We can click on the button in order to edit them. And right now this tool is in beta, so there's a bunch of testing tags over here. Let's add a manual one just for testing. So let's call it testing tag and let's press enter. And there you go. The tag was indeed added. So now back in the code, let's just run this function for testing. So comment this one and run this one. Okay. And press our button. And yep, look at that. All of the various tags. And again, note how the default tags, these all have some strange IDs, but we can see down here the one that we had properly. This one has a proper ID. So here we've got the name, testing tag, and then a really nice unique ID. So this is how you would get the tags, get the tag name and the tag ID. And then back in our function for creating the content, over here we've got the various options, and we could add the tags ID. We could do a new list. And for example, we could copy this tag. Let's paste this one like this. And let's create another piece of content. So let's call it test tag content. Okay, let's run this. So like this, let's test. Here, create, and there you go, we created the content. And here in the dashboard, let's refresh. Yep, there's the content. And this will create our content with this tag. Okay, so here we already covered lots of things. We covered how to create content, so how to upload, how to find contents, how to download it, subscribe, and download subscribed content and get the tag list. Now there's a bunch more stuff we can do with the API. Here are the docs, here's the quick start guide, which has all the things we've already done, and then over here all the various things you can do. So as you can see, we can create content, we can update content, so that's useful. We can delete, update just the metadata, then do a search for content, get the player's content, page through all the results, search for a bunch of content. And over here is also a really useful helper function. Here's a function which takes some content and simply converts it into an actual sprite. So what it does is really just creates a texture 2D, just an empty texture 2D, and uses the load image function in order to convert the bytes into an actual texture, and then just call sprite.create in order to create a sprite based on that texture. So this is super useful. With this, you either have a texture or a sprite, which you can then use to easily display in the UI or anything. Then down here, more things related to subscribing and unsubscribing and even rating content, and then some representations. These are essentially different versions of your content. Like for example, you make a mod that has a certain data when used on PC, but different data when used on PlayStation. That would be a different representation. And finally down here, a bunch of moderation API calls. This tool has a very robust set of moderation actions you can take. So using all of these API endpoints, you can either approve content, you can report it, reject it, and so on. So you've got all of this stuff you can do through the package API. And alternatively, there's also a web service API. Using all of these various API endpoints, using this, you can build pretty much anything. So you can either use Unity's own Creator Center tool, or you can just implement this directly onto your own website. Now let's just inspect the rest of the dashboard. So if we go onto the overview, over here we can see a bunch of stats. We can see how much content we have, how many downloads, subscriptions, reports, the creators, and so on. Then we can obviously view all of the various content. Next is on the moderation tab. Over here we can view some moderation settings. So we can set a report threshold, set it to either flexible or strict. We can assign a bunch of specific moderators. So we can click on add moderator, then we just need to assign the player ID. Then we've got a list of banned players that we want to ban for some reason, and then the moderator logs. This is where you'd see how some moderator bans some content for some reason. Next is the service settings tab. First up, you can set it to use Unity CDN. This means it won't be using Unity's cloud content delivery. Now, if you don't know about it, this is Unity's content delivery network. It's widely used in their addressable system for delivering content to your players, like for example, game updates or DLC. I've got several lectures on my Ultimate Unity Overview course covering both addressables remote, and cloud content delivery. So if you want to learn more, definitely check out the course. Then here, like we saw, you can also add tags. There are categories, which is a sort of a different thing that is coming in the future. And then here you've got IDs for the various authentication providers. Next, we've got the webhooks. So like I said, this tool can integrate with your own website in many ways. With this, you can easily set up some webhooks. So for example, you can set your website to receive some data when some content was created. Then using that, perhaps you could connect to the Discord API and post some kind of message that something was created. So you can really build on top of this and build anything you want on your own interface, your own website, your own anything. And then of course, we have the web portal setup. You can set up some basic settings, make it as visible, and then click on preview. However, when you do, you might see this. There are no authentication providers, so we need to assign this in order to actually use this Creator Center. So this is like I said a while ago, which is in order for this to work, we need some kind of persistent sign-in method. Now, like I said a while ago, in order for this to work, we need some kind of persistent sign-in method. If we use the anonymous sign-in to upload some content, then we can't access it over here on the Creator Center since we don't know what the generated anonymous user ID is. So right now we can't log in here, we need a non-anonymous method. And the Unity authentication package supports many persistent sign-in methods. If you're making Android games, you've got Google and Google Play Games. If you're on iOS, you've got Apple and the Apple Game Center. And then if you're on PC, you've got Steam, Facebook, or Oculus. Or you can even make it work with anything that implements the OpenID standard. So for example, if you have some website for your game, you can make it work with that login. Now you can use any of these as persistent sign-in methods. Also, quick note, since I recorded this video, Unity player accounts is entered beta. This is Unity's own authentication solution, which works on all platforms. So this is another valid option if you're working on PC. If you're watching this in the future, then check the pinned comment for any updates. In my case for demo, I'm developing this on PC and I don't have an app ID for this tutorial, so I can't use Steam. So I opted to test with the Facebook method. Now this actually took a ton of work to figure out how to use it. There's no guide anywhere. Or rather, Unity itself has a guide, but it doesn't seem to work. I found lots of issues. However, after much trial and error, I finally got it working. I made a post over here on the forums that covered how I finally got it working. Basically, the only way it works is by using what Facebook calls device login, then doing a bunch of things. So if you want to see the actual implementation of how I did it, then you can watch this post. But like I said, with regards to UGC, it works with any of these methods, so it doesn't have to be Facebook, you can use any of these. With that, here I've got a function to authenticate with Facebook. And here with the game running, yep, it did work, okay, great. Now with this, I can upload the same content that we saw a while ago, and now it will be linked with the Facebook account that is linked with this player ID. So over here, we're going to run the create content function, which is going to create this, call it persistent account content. Okay, so let's see. Here we are, signed in, press the button to upload, and there you go, created the content. Okay, great. Now the only thing I need is to go under service settings, and over here, make sure to input the Facebook client ID. And now if we go into the web portal and we preview it, yep, here we've got a regular login with Facebook button. And yep, I've signed in, and here is the Creator Center, and yep, here I do see my persistent account content. Over here I can view some stats, so how many people are subscribing, viewing, rating, reporting, and downloading, and so on. Then under Content Management, I can see all of the mods that I have uploaded. And over here, directly from the web portal, I can actually directly add some content. So I can just drag the content over here, give it a title, description, tags, and so on. So as you can see, this website, the Creator Center, this one is extremely useful to be able to do so much without actually having to go in-game. And then next to the Creator Center over here is the Moderation Center. So this is where moderators would come in to see what assets, work content has been flagged, and decide what to do with it. So this web portal, the Creative Center and Moderation Center are super useful. And there's yet another even more useful thing that is coming soon in the future, which is their web portal. Basically, that's a browser for the players rather than the creators, so they can browse for all the mods, install them, comment, do all kinds of things. So all of these web-based tools, these are super awesome, really makes it easy to handle and manage mods in your game. There's also one more really awesome thing that is not available right now, but will be coming in the future, which is the UGC Bridge. Basically, this is a plugin that you can add to the Unity editor itself, and with that you can create mods directly from inside Unity and actually upload them. So you don't need to add modding tools onto your game code, you can just use the Unity editor itself as a tool for building your mods. That really enables so many more use cases, so much more complexity. You can add validation, you can add all kinds of logic, all kinds of requirements for how your mods should go, and your users can use the entire power of Unity to actually edit and build their mods. So that way you can use all the power of the Unity editor without having to build all that tooling yourself. Finally, let's cover the pricing for this tool. Just like all the other Unity Gaming Services tools, I think the pricing is actually extremely fair. We can scroll down to find user-generated content. Alright, so here it is. And it's based on two things. It's on storage and download. So basically how much data you are storing in all of the user-generated content, and how much of it is being downloaded per month. Here we can see the free tier and then the paid tier. Now whether this free tier, whether this is enough or not, is really going to depend on what kind of mods you allow for your game. For example, if you allow players to create massive open worlds with tons and tons of 8K textures, then perhaps this amount might not be enough. But in the vast majority of cases, mod files are really tiny. For example, in my Steam game Battle Royale Tycoon, I added mod support for making custom VIPs. And in this case, each VIP is really just a character sprite and some text. So in total, as you can see, literally just 36 kilobytes. So that's a tiny amount. Meaning that with a free tier, I could literally have millions of user-generated VIPs. So based on that, I would say these free tiers do seem quite capable. If you're a small-scale indie dev like me, then you probably will never have to spend 1 cent. And of course, speaking of the workshop, let me address a question that many of you might have, which was also the first question that I had when I first heard about this tool, which is how does it compare with the Steam Workshop? And the first answer is simply that this tool is multi-platform, meaning it works on every platform that Unity supports, whereas Steam Workshop only works if your game is on Steam. With this tool, you can use it with a game that you publish on itch, you can publish on mobile, web, consoles, or literally anything. So based on how easy this tool is to use, you could definitely make some fun experiments on game jams and upload it to itch. The second answer is how the Steam Workshop hasn't really improved in the last decade, whereas this tool is being built right now to support the needs of the games today. So it has all those extra very useful features that we saw, like the Creative Center and the upcoming web portal. Also the very robust moderation tools, which are definitely a must nowadays. It also has webhooks, which can be triggered based on all kinds of conditions. So using this, you can easily extend it with whatever extra automated tools you have, like for example, posting something on your game's Discord when someone uploads a new content. And perhaps best of all is the UGC Unity Bridge. By allowing players to build mods directly inside Unity itself, it really enables all kinds of interesting use cases. It allows you to support extremely complex scenarios and add all kinds of validation, and you can do all of that directly inside Unity using the regular Unity workflow. So the Steam Workshop is definitely indeed great, and this tool builds upon that foundation to help you take your game modding to the next level. Alright, so that's Unity's user-generated content tool. Personally, I really love it. As soon as I heard about this tool the first time, I was immediately interested. I've implemented some kind of modding in pretty much all of my Steam games. People love making things, and it's one of those things that can really help you take your game to the next level. It can keep your game alive for many years after release. So nowadays UGC is a really powerful thing, and thanks to this tool, it is actually surprisingly easy. So check the link in the description to get started using user-generated content. Also, YouTube videos cannot be updated, so go check the pinned comment where I will be updating it with any news, like for example when UGC Bridge is out or when this tool is out of beta. And stay tuned for the upcoming video where I will showcase how I added some complex mods to my Kitchen Chaos game. Alright, hope that's useful. Check out these videos to learn some more. Thanks to these awesome Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.